Over 70% of the ocean floor is completely uncharted to mankind. And somewhere in the deep may be the bones of a giant sea monster who ate one of God's prophets. Did you know that? Hey there everybody, welcome to another installment of Did You Know That? With Pastor Todd. Now today we have ourselves a bit of a kaiju-sized problem, maybe even bigger than Godzilla himself. It's the story about Jonah in the book of the Bible that is often debated as whether it's history or whether it's metaphorical. So today, before we get into all of that, let's talk about the actual story of Jonah with a little help from our youth department. Take it away, guys.
Hey Joseph, thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, no problem.
So today you're going to be a prophet named Jonah who actually had a hard time listening to what God tells him to do.
Alright.
So, Jonah was a prophet who's known for sharing God's word with his people. But one day, God gave a message to Jonah to share with the city of Nineveh. Jonah knew the people of Nineveh were really bad people, so he decided not to give them the message and actually tried to run away. He found himself a crew and a boat, and he was ready to sail far away. Far away from Nineveh, and ultimately far away from God's destiny for him. It seemed Jonah had made a clean getaway. That is until in the middle of their voyage a storm showed up.
Hey guys, what's that?
The boat was starting to sink, and the crew cast lots to find out that Jonah was the reason the storm was here. So Jonah, being a good honorable man, told them to throw him overboard. And the crew begrudgingly did so.
Oh, that sucks.
After Jonah was thrown overboard, God had sent a creature called Ketos to come swallow him up to show him the error of his ways.
Oh, like a whale? It's gonna sweep me up?
Actually, Ketos is closer to the word sea monster than it is whale.
Monster!
After 3 days in the belly of the monster, Jonah had prayed to God that he was ready to deliver the message to Nineveh, and then the monster spat him back out.
You said we were just gonna hang out!
Wow, what an intense story. I mean, seriously, Oscar-worthy acting going on there, and the director himself should probably get a giant pat on the back, whoever he was. But all I'm saying is this, the story is super interesting, and for instance, the whole thing about the word ketos, let's break that down a little bit. When the Greeks translated the Bible from Hebrew into their own native language, they used the word for big fish for Jonah as ketos. Now, ketos was not an uncommon word. Matter of fact, historians such as Homer, Euripides, and Aristophanes all use this word to describe the giant sea monster that plagued the Mediterranean. But all I'm saying is this, the word ketos that was used to describe Jonah would give us kind of a better representation of what actually happened. The only giant fish or whale that would have been able to swallow Jonah whole would be a sperm whale. Now, I'm not saying giant sea monsters are also native to the Mediterranean Sea, but I'm saying that there is a possibility that maybe something else ate him that we didn't really consider. And not only that it ate him, but that Jonah might have actually died in the belly of the beast. When Jesus was talking about Jonah, he actually used it as a historical event and talked about how it was much like what he was going to go through. Jesus died, 3 days later, came back to life. Jonah, the belly of the beast, 3 days, then gets spit out. It's not out of the ordinary to say that he might have died for that process. And the fact that Jesus talked about it in a historical sense and not an allegorical sense is really, really key. I mean, he was God, the same God that sent something to go eat Jonah, which he was then talking about. That's insane. Anyways, I'm not here to convince you about giant sea monsters, so before you click to the next cooking video about how to make really good tempura or go on to some weird cat video, just hear me out. I'm not talking about sea monsters, I'm talking about a man named Jonah. And as we saw from the story, Jonah had a really rough time trusting God with his destiny and who he is. But in Matthew chapter 19, verse 26, it says, "But with God, all things are possible." Jonah didn't think he'd be able to get to the Ninevites, and I think even change their mind. But he had God on his side. So although it seemed impossible to change a city that full of people to turn away from their wicked ways and go towards God, God did it through Jonah. Whether you have a hard time accepting that God can change your destiny, or maybe change your home life, or maybe even change the stuff going on in your mind and in your heart, let me encourage you today. With God, all things are possible. Even maybe a giant sea monster. I mean, in Job, it also talks about the Leviathan. You gotta look that up. But listen, God is moving with you, and with him, anything can happen. So give him your trust this week. Thank you so much for joining me, and we'll see you next time.